Hello and welcome to my cell project. Let's just go up the elevator and so we can go see it. So our first part of the cell is the cell membrane, and that would be this clear glass layer I've put all around the cell here. Its function is to monitor and selectively controls entry into the cell and out of it as well. That means it determines which materials can go into the cell and which materials can go out of the cell. Our next part of the cell is this green liquid over here, and that's the cytoplasm. It would fill the entire cell, but that makes it very hard to see the rest of the structures inside the cell. Its function is that it has enzymes that are dissolved into it that carry out reactions to convert one molecule to another. So that means it's converting molecules and other stuff using enzymes that are dissolved in it. The next part of the cell is, of course, the nucleus, which is right over here. There's a glass structure over here I made. Here's the nucleus. It would be this glass roundish structure here. Its function, this is where the DNA is stored and replicated and where the mRNA is transcribed. This is basically the brain of the cell as well. It controls, it's basically like if you don't have this in the cell, there's not really a cell. Yeah. You need this to have a plant cell, just like the rest of this stuff. Okay, the next part of the cell is the cytoskeleton, which is right over here. Oops. The cytoskeleton. It's all these brown structures that are all around here. This is responsible for the cell shape, motility of the cell as a whole. That means it's basically like it's like the cell wall. It's very similar to the cell wall. However, it's keeping the shape of the cell inside the cell. So it's helping the cell. It's also helping the cell to maintain its shape with this rigid form that it has. The next part is the rough ER, which means that I'm gonna have to go through here. I put a little sign here saying, because I've left this not layered as much, because I left it open to show more of the layering. Oh, by the way, these red... Okay, lag. Okay, so these red things here are ribosomes, which is why it's the rough ER, because it has ribosomes. It's not flat. Okay, so rough ER. Function: manufactures and packages secreted proteins. So like, it's helping to, it's like, basically it's helping to package and manufacture. So it's making them and packaging them, and then it sends, I'm pretty sure, if I'm correct, it does send it to the Golgi complex over here for a final check. And then the next part is the smooth ER, of course. The SER, smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Function: this is where lipid synthesis and carbohydrate metabolism takes place. This is basically like where all of your energy is going to go into the cell. This is one of the main areas that your energy is being used when it's being created by the mitochondria. This is where most of it's going. Next we have the ribosomes, which are right over here. They're these little red dots I have floating around the cell, going to their different locations. Ribosomes. Function: it makes proteins from amino acids in a process called translation. So basically, it's making all of the proteins for the cell that the cell would need. Okay, next we have the Golgi complex. I'm never going to pronounce that right. Please bear with me. Okay, it has a lot in its function. This is it. It's layered like this, sort of. It's supposed to look like pancakes, but I don't really see it looking like pancakes, so it was a good way to remember it, but yeah. Anyways, so its function is it aids in the modification, packaging, and secretion of proteins made in the cell. It acts as a sophisticated check for protein products before they are shipped to their final destination. So basically, it's doing a final check on what the smooth ER and what the RER, the rough endoplasmic reticulum, is doing. So it's making a final check on those proteins and what the ribosomes are making, and it's making sure everything's in check before it sends it off to the rest of the cell. So before anything goes over here, or over there, or over there, or over there, or over there, it's checking it, sort of like a quality check on a factory line. Next we have the Next we have the giant thing in the middle of the cell, which is the vacuole, the large central vacuole, which just takes up almost the entirety of the cell. Okay, its function is it helps the cell to maintain its shape and may also be used to store nutrients, waste products, or even pigments that provide flower color. It's basically just a giant liquid storage area. See, I cut this away to show that it's like full of liquid. And as more water goes into the cell, this is the part that would swell up with the water. So it's very large. Okay, next we have the mitochondria, which are these blue things I have floating around here. The mitochondria function. One second. I just said it today. Okay, function. Primarily responsible for metabolizing sugar molecules to provide usable ATF, which is the main energy source for the majority of cellular functions. So that means it's taking the sugars that are created by the cytoplasts, and like metabolizing them into a usable source of energy for like the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi body complex, the ribosomes. It's basically like making all of this stuff work by transferring the sugars into a usable energy source within the cell. It's basically like when you take a transformer and transform energy, and you transform like from 20 volts to like a normal 12 volt battery for a computer. That would be what this is doing. It's basically a transformer for the cell. Next we have the cell wall, which is up over here. The cell wall is the cell wall is against the cell membrane in mine. It's this green blocky one on the outside. It's the outside layer here, the rigid part. Its function: cell wall provides mechanical strength to the plant, allowing it to grow tall without collapsing. It's basically it's the main source of the rigidity of the shape of the cell, so it's basically what's making it square. It's a very rigid surface. So, as it says, it's helping keep the plant from falling down. Okay. And last but not least, we have right down here these green things. We have the chloroplasts. Their function is it contains chlorophyll, a green-colored molecule that uses energy from the sunlight to turn water and carbon dioxide into sugar and oxygen. So this is like, if you don't have this, your plant cell dies, because it sends the sugar to the mitochondria over there, which transforms it into energy that the cell uses to function properly. So you need these in order to have life. They're very, very important. And they're all over the cell. And, okay, so those are all the structures within my cell. We can do one last flyover of the cell so you guys can see one last time. So there we have in the red, those red dots over there, ribosomes. We have the nucleus down there with the smooth ER and the rough ER. We have the Golgi complex. We have the chloroplasts, we have the mitochondria, we have the cytoskeletons, we have the large vacuole, we have the cell membrane and the cell wall, and that would be it. We're done. Surprisingly.